When I turned 18, my parents, Mike and Susan, delivered their so-called independence speech like it was some rite of passage. We sat in the living room, the same one where Emily's birthday parties always featured elaborate cakes and piles of gifts. "You're an adult now, Sarah," Dad said, leaning back in his armchair. "You're smart enough to handle things on your own. No college fund from us, no tuition, no books, nothing. You'll figure it out." Mom nodded along, adding how proud they were of my self-reliance. It felt less like encouragement and more like a dismissal. Meanwhile, Emily, 4 years younger and still in high school, was already set. They'd been socking away money for her college since she was in diapers. Designer clothes from boutiques I couldn't pronounce. The newest iPhone every year without fail. Handbags that cost more than my future rent payments. Vacations to beaches and ski resorts, while I stayed home building character. It wasn't subtle. It was blatant. Family dinners often turned into praise sessions for Emily's latest achievement. Good grades, soccer wins, whatever. While my part-time job or scholarship applications got a polite, "That's nice." I'd learned early that pointing it out only led to eye rolls or lectures about jealousy. So I swallowed the resentment, plastered on a smile, and hustled harder. College was a grind that nearly broke me. I moved into a cramped, roach-infested apartment shared with 3 strangers, the kind where you'd wake up to bugs crawling on the walls. Meals were ramen noodles or whatever was on sale at the dollar store. Days blurred into exhaustion from classes. Then night shifts bagging groceries at the local supermarket. Classmates talked about weekend parties or spring break trips. I calculated how many hours I'd need to work to cover rent. Textbooks? I'd hunt for borrowed copies from upperclassmen or sketchy pirated PDFs online, squinting at blurry screens late into the night. One brutal winter, the heat got shut off for unpaid bills. I layered blankets and studied by flashlight, breath fogging in the cold air. Sleep was a luxury. Burnout was constant. Friends drifted away, not understanding why I couldn't join them. I felt isolated, like I was fighting a war no one else could see. That's when Grandma Ellen stepped in like a lifeline. Dad's mom, living alone across state lines after Grandpa passed, she'd always been the quiet observer in our family chaos. Hard of hearing, so phone calls were out. She preferred texts, short and sweet. She'd built a comfortable life through smart investments, a paid-off home, steady savings. Out of the blue, every few months, a text. "Need anything for school? Sending a little help. Love you. Focus on your studies." Then $1,000 or $2,000 would hit my account. It wasn't extravagant, but it was everything. Actual groceries with vegetables, legitimate textbooks I could highlight without guilt. Even a space heater that winter. She never asked for thanks or details. She just knew. I later learned she'd noticed the favoritism years earlier, quietly seething at how Mike and Susan treated me differently. "Your parents are fools," she'd text once. "You're the strong one." Without her, I might have dropped out, swallowed by debt and despair. She was the reason I crossed that graduation stage, diploma in hand. Fast forward 7 years, I'm 30 now, grinding away at a solid but soul-draining desk job in marketing. 10-hour days, skipping vacations or dinners out to funnel every extra dollar into savings for a down payment on a house. Not renting forever. I want something that's truly mine, roots I control. Family contact has dwindled to superficial monthly check-ins from my parents. Polite texts about the weather or how's work that feel scripted and hollow. Emily's Instagram is a highlight reel of luxury trips, new cars, effortless success. It stings less now, buried under layers of independence, but the guilt hits harder elsewhere. I barely text Grandma Ellen anymore. Between the job's demands and my own exhaustion, weeks slip by without a message. She's getting older, frailer from what I hear through Dad's rare updates. I know I should call more, visit, repay her quiet heroism, but the weight of survival leaves little room for anything else. The pain from those years lingers, a silent foundation shaping every choice. Prove I'm worthy, on my own terms, no matter the cost. My 30th birthday fell on a quiet Saturday in early spring. I was living in a 400 square foot studio apartment, affordable, mine, and finally bug-free. I invited a handful of close friends and, on a hopeful whim, Grandma Ellen. She texted back almost immediately. "Wish I could be there, sweetheart. Health won't allow the trip, but I'm sending something special with your parents for the little party they mentioned." I hadn't known my parents were planning to come, but the idea of Grandma's gift arriving through them felt like a small bridge. The day arrived. Friends showed up with wine, pizza, and laughter that filled the cramped space with warmth. Then, 40 minutes late, Mom and Dad appeared at the door. Dad carried a couple of wrapped boxes. Mom's smile was thin and polite. They stepped inside, surveyed the room, the fold-out table, the single overhead bulb, the mismatched chairs. And Mom let out a little laugh. "It's so cozy. Cramped and dim, isn't it?" Dad nodded, adding, "You always did like minimalism." The digs were casual, almost affectionate in tone, but they landed like needles. They stayed exactly 30 minutes. I checked the clock. Gifts were handed over quickly. A bottle of cheap perfume that smelled like bathroom cleaner. A $25 gift card to a coffee chain I never visited. And a self-help book titled "Let Go of Envy." Then the real gift, the one from Grandma. A heavy crystal vase, tall and exquisitely cut, catching what little light there was and scattering it like diamonds. It was beautiful, thoughtful, and utterly impractical in a studio with no table space and a cat that knocked everything over. Mom shrugged when I thanked her for delivering it. Grandma insisted. You know how she is. They made excuses about traffic and left before the cake was even cut. My friends rallied, turning the night into real celebration, but the sting from my parents lingered like smoke. A month later, my phone rang with an unknown number. It was my cousin Lisa, voice bubbling with disbelief. "Sarah, did you know Emily bought a house? Like, a real 3-bedroom with a yard? She had this huge housewarming party. 50 people. Catered food, string lights in the trees. Where were you?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't heard a word. Not a text, not an invite. Nothing. Lisa filled in the blanks. Apparently, Mom had told everyone I hate crowds and am too introverted for parties. One aunt claimed Mom had whispered that I'd become jealous and bitter and might make things awkward. Rage surged through me. Hot, dizzying. I didn't even know the party existed, let alone had the chance to decline. I called Emily that night. She answered with background music and laughter, clearly still riding the high. "Oh, hey," she said, casual as ever. "What's up?" I asked about the house. She laughed lightly. "Yeah, it's amazing. You should see the kitchen." When I pressed about how a 25-year-old part-time barista afforded a mortgage, her tone cooled. Mom and Dad helped. A lot. But honestly, it's none of your business how we manage things. Then, softer, almost mocking. "You hate parties anyway, right?" That's what Mom said. Click. She hung up. That night I scrolled through her public Instagram. Posts of sunlit marble counters, a blooming backyard garden, captions like, "So grateful for the most supportive parents in the world," and "Dream home at 25. Pinch me." Each photo felt like a slap. I remembered eating plain crackers in my freezing apartment while they quietly funneled money into her future. The unfairness wasn't new, but seeing it celebrated so publicly, while I was painted as the difficult one, crystallized something cold and hard inside me. Then came my parents' 35th wedding anniversary. The date had been circled on my calendar for months. Despite everything, I wanted to show up with grace. I spent weeks hunting for the perfect gift. A large, engraved silver picture frame with their wedding date and a heartfelt inscription, holding a restored photo from their honeymoon. It cost me $200, money I could have put toward my own house fund. But it felt meaningful, a quiet olive branch. I saw the Facebook event pop up. A garden party at a local venue, 80 guests, catered dinner. No direct invite came to me, but I figured it was an oversight. Family milestones like this usually included everyone. Grandma texted a week before. So excited for the anniversary party. Can't wait to see you there, dear. It's been too long. My heart lifted. She was planning to attend. A rare trip. The day before the event, my phone rang. Mom's name on the screen. Her voice was clipped, efficient. Sarah? About tomorrow. Don't come. We had to cut the guest list last minute for seating, and, well, you're not needed. You can visit us another weekend. Just like that. No apology, no explanation beyond logistics. Old me would have said, okay, swallowed the hurt and stayed home. But this time, something snapped. Grandma was expecting me. She'd made the effort to travel despite her health. And after years of being erased, excused, and excluded, I wasn't going to disappear quietly to make their narrative easier. I texted Grandma, "I'll be there. Can't wait to see you." Then I hung the engraved frame carefully in a gift bag, put on the nicest dress I owned, and prepared to show up anyway. I drove to the upscale restaurant in silence, the engraved silver frame riding shotgun in its careful wrapping. The venue was one of those places with valet parking, white tablecloths, and soft jazz drifting from hidden speakers. Exactly the kind of spot my parents loved for milestones. I handed my keys to the valet, smoothed my dress, the only nice one I owned, bought secondhand for a work event, and walked in without looking back. The private dining room held about 40 guests. Aunts, uncles, cousins, old family friends, all dressed in variations of linen and silk. Crystal glasses caught the candlelight. Floral centerpieces towered over plates of seared scallops and filet mignon. I spotted the head table immediately. Mom and Dad flanked by Emily, all three glowing under the attention. Then I saw Grandma Ellen near the end, frail but upright in a pale blue dress, her silver hair pinned elegantly. She looked smaller than I remembered. The moment I stepped through the arched doorway, my parents noticed. Mom's champagne flute froze halfway to her lips. Dad's face tightened, and he leaned toward her for a frantic whisper. They both stood halfway, gesturing sharply toward the exit while trying to keep smiles plastered on. Mom mouthed, "Leave, we told you no," as if I were an embarrassing gatecrasher. Before they could intercept me, Grandma's eyes landed on me across the room. Her face lit up like sunrise. Because of her deafness, volume control had never been her strength. "Sarah," she boomed, loud enough to cut through every conversation. "My girl, over here, come sit by me. It's been far too long." Heads swiveled. Forks paused midair. A cousin dropped his phone. There was no escaping it now. Every pair of eyes tracked me as I walked the length of the room. My parents' forced smiles looked painful. Dad actually shoved Emily's chair sideways to clear a spot next to Grandma, muttering something about unexpected seating. Emily shot me a glare sharp enough to cut glass, but she moved. I kissed Grandma's cheek. She smelled like the same lavender soap she'd used forever, and sat down beside her. The chatter resumed, but it was thinner now, curious glances flicking our way. Dinner unfolded in courses: salad, soup, entree. Toasts came one after another. Old friends praising Mike and Susan as the most generous parents, perfect role models, always putting family first. Each word landed like irony on my tongue. I kept quiet, nodding politely, sipping water while resentment simmered low. Then, just after the plates were cleared for dessert, Grandma reached over and squeezed my hand. She turned toward the room with that same unmodulated volume. "Sarah, darling," she announced to everyone and no one in particular, "how are you liking the house I bought you for your 30th? That lovely little place through Harbor and Pine Realty. I picked it out myself. The keys should be with your parents. Have you started decorating yet?" The room went dead silent. You could hear ice shifting in water glasses. A fork clattered. Mom's, I think. Then Dad's followed. I felt every stare swing to me, then to my parents. My mouth went dry. I leaned close to Grandma's ear and whispered, "Grandma, I didn't get a house. You sent the crystal vase, remember?" That was the gift. Her brow furrowed in genuine confusion. She blinked twice, processing. Then understanding dawned, and her expression shifted into something I'd never seen on her face before. Cold, righteous fury. She straightened in her chair, spine like steel, and turned directly to my parents. Mike, Susan. Her voice carried effortlessly. Perhaps you can explain to everyone why the $250,000 I wired you, explicitly for Sarah's home, paperwork drawn up in her name, realtor fully briefed, ended up somewhere else. A collective gasp rippled through the tables. Someone's wine glass hit the table too hard and sloshed red across the cloth. Emily jumped up first, chair scraping loudly. "It's mine," she blurted, voice cracking. "I've been living there for months. It's my house." Dad stood slowly, hands trembling, face drained of color. "Mom, we thought it made more sense to give it to Emily." She was ready to settle down. "And Sarah?" He faltered under the weight of 40 stares. Grandma didn't raise her voice further. She didn't need to. She simply rose, steady despite her age, and beckoned my parents with one finger. "A word, now." The three of them moved to the corner near the dessert station. I couldn't hear the words, but I watched the effect. Mom's shoulders collapsed inward, Dad nodding frantically, both of them ghost white and blinking too fast. Grandma's posture never wavered. She spoke calmly, deliberately, every syllable a hammer. When they returned, Dad cleared his throat and addressed the room with a brittle smile. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate with us tonight. It's been wonderful. But we're going to wrap things up a little early. Please enjoy the dessert on your way out." No one argued. Chairs scraped as guests gathered purses and jackets, conversations erupting in low, shocked bursts. As people filed past, the whispers were impossible to miss. Did they really steal her house? What kind of parents do that? Poor Sarah, and poor Grandma. I stayed seated beside Grandma, holding her hand while the room emptied. She patted my knuckles gently, eyes fierce but wet. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," she said quietly. Still too loud for intimacy, but the only apology I needed. "This ends tonight. That house will be yours, or they'll answer to me in ways they never imagined." The restaurant staff began stacking chairs around us. My parents hovered near the exit, not daring to approach. Emily had already stormed out. And for the first time in years, the weight on my chest shifted. Not gone, but shared. The truth was, finally, undeniably, out in the open. That night, after the restaurant staff dimmed the lights and locked the doors behind the last whispering guest, Grandma refused my parents' offer to drive her home. She looked at them, really looked, and said, "No, I'm going with Sarah." Her voice still carried that unintentional volume, but the words were quiet steel. Dad opened his mouth, closed it, and nodded. Mom wouldn't meet my eyes. We took Grandma's hired car service back to my studio. She insisted on seeing where I lived. No excuses. When we stepped inside the 400 square foot space, she took it all in slowly. The Murphy bed folded into the wall, the tiny kitchenette with 2 burners, the single window overlooking a brick wall. She ran a hand along the bookshelf I'd built from cinder blocks and planks, then sat on the only armchair. Vase from my 30th still proudly displayed on the narrow shelf above the radiator. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart," she said, eyes shining. I should have confirmed delivery myself. I trusted them. She pulled a folder from her large purse, thick, official-looking document stamped by Harbor and Pine Realty. But the deed was drawn up in your name only. The money was wired with instructions they couldn't legally ignore. They forged your signature or coerced the realtor somehow. Either way, it's fraud. I sat on the ottoman across from her, stunned. "Grandma, you don't have to." "I do," she cut in firmly. "And I already have." She'd apparently called her longtime attorney from the car on the way over. By morning, he'd filed an emergency injunction freezing any further transfer or mortgage on the property and demanded an immediate title correction. The next weeks were a whirlwind. Emily moved out of the house within 10 days, under legal pressure and Grandma's unyielding deadline. Photos came down, her designer furniture went into storage, and the marble counters I'd once envied on Instagram were scrubbed clean of her monogram towels. My parents tried calls, then tears, then anger. "You're destroying the family." Grandma's response, texted to the family group chat, volume unintentionally loud again. "You destroyed it first. Fix this, or lose me entirely." They went silent after that. I took possession of the house 4 weeks after the anniversary disaster. The keys were hand-delivered by the realtor in person, face flushed with apologies for being misled by my parents' paperwork. It was a modest but beautiful 3-bedroom craftsman. Hardwood floors, a sunny kitchen with the marble counters Emily had flaunted, a small backyard with mature hydrangeas Grandma had apparently chosen herself. Walking through it, empty for the first time, I cried, ugly, relieved sobs, in the middle of the living room. Grandma moved in with me 3 months later. Her health had declined faster than she admitted. Stairs in her old house became impossible, and nights alone worried her doctor. "I'm not asking charity," she told me over tea in the new kitchen. "I'll pay rent, groceries, whatever you need. But I'd like to spend whatever years I have left watching you build the life you deserve." I didn't argue. We turned the main floor bedroom into hers, added ramps and grab bars, and suddenly the house felt full in a way my studio never had. Full of her stories, her laughter echoing too loudly down hallways. Her fierce protection. My parents tried reconciliation 6 months after the fallout. A long email from Mom. Apologies, excuses about wanting Emily stable first, promises to make it right. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I invited them to the house for coffee one Sunday. Neutral ground on my terms. Grandma present. They arrived looking older, smaller. Dad's hands shook, holding the mug. Mom's eyes kept drifting to the framed photos on the mantel. Me graduating, me and Grandma at the closing, me in the garden I'd started planting. Conversation was stilted until Grandma spoke up. "You have one chance to earn your way back. Therapy. All 4 of us, weekly. You pay. You listen more than you talk. And you never, ever dismiss Sarah's feelings again." They agreed. We've been going for 2 months now. Progress is slow. Tears, defensiveness. Old patterns surfacing. But there are moments of honesty I never thought possible. Dad admitted the favoritism started because Emily needed them more. Mom confessed fear that helping me would mean I'd never need them. Painful, messy, but real. Emily hasn't spoken to me directly. She's renting a small apartment downtown, working full-time at the coffee shop, posting far less on social media. Rumor has it she's in therapy too. I don't wish her harm. I just don't have space for her yet. As for me, I still work the same job, but I've cut hours to part-time and started freelancing. Finally breathing room to enjoy the house, the garden, evenings on the porch with Grandma debating old movies. I bought real furniture, painted walls, colors I love. Hung the engraved anniversary frame in the hallway anyway. My quiet reminder that I choose who belongs in my home. 6 months after the meltdown, the pain hasn't vanished. Some nights I still wake up tasting ramen and resentment. But it's quieter now, layered under new sounds. Grandma's off-key humming in the kitchen, wind chimes I hung in the hydrangeas, the creak of my own front door opening onto a life I fought for. Finally, truly mine. Healing isn't linear, and justice doesn't erase scars. But for the first time, I'm not carrying it all alone.